I'm so glad we were able to do the wrap up call. I love the wrap up calls because it's a great way for me to know where you're standing now, where you feel compared to where you came in, and also if there's
Mhm.
anything that you still want to work on or room for improvement, from my end or your end. So first of all, you're welcome to share anything with me if I don't cover it in my questions. But I just want to know, like, overall, how you're feeling compared to when we had our original discovery call to how you're feeling now.
Oh, well, much better, obviously. Um, it's so much better. So I do know that I have to revisit some things because over time, like because it's not cemented in my brain, first of all, like you learn and it makes sense, but then I have to go over it again. And you've said that before, so that makes sense. I also have to catch Sean up so that we can continue to be on the same page. Because he had quite a bit of work, and so did I in December. So I kind of fell. That's what half me behind. But other than that, which is our fault, it's so much better. Everything clicks. It makes so much more sense.
Good.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I definitely have to, like, I'm kicking myself for not having done it at the beginning of the pandemic, but we have distance learning coming up. So I'm glad to at least have done it now
Yeah.
to help us when we're going to be all stuck at home.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So do you feel, before you joined the program, do you feel like how do you feel you were feeling? Do you feel like you were guessing? Do you feel like you just got up and went through the days in hopes that it was going to be easy or hard or however it turned out? And how do you feel you approach your days now?
before it was just that, like I would go as it would go. I didn't feel prepared and I would be guessing or trying to get tidbits from the internet, which I now know um, they don't give you the why like you do. So it's like weird little things. Um, so yeah, I felt lost. And then at the end of the days, I would always feel guilty because I would replay my guesses and be like, well, that's not working. Plus, there's our knee jerk um, parenting that we don't know how else to do other than what we've already established in ourselves. So I'd be like, without thinking, do my natural reaction, and then um, like obviously that's not working because if our days end up the same all the time and I always end up being guilty, then
And it's not working.
yeah. So now, even if I make a mistake, which I'm doing more mistakes now that I need to revisit, I can go back and go, oh, well, I think this was needed. Or maybe we've been forgetting to label special time at bedtime because that's so routine.
Mhm.
And stuff like that's just an example of
Yeah,
how I think differently and feel a bit more confident.
good.
Um,
Yeah, it changes the idea around, we weren't thinking about our parenting before. We were
yeah.
feeling that we love our kids and we want to do the best, and we were feeling guilty about, when we do something we don't feel great about or we react in a way. But now, instead of just feeling, we're thinking. And it's
Mhm.
so important to be able to think about what you're saying and what you're doing, which without the tools, what do you think about? That's the hardest part. We don't have anything to think about. And
Yeah.
so being able to put the think with the feel is really important. So that's awesome that you're thinking about things.
Mhm.
And I think as you continue, I love that you have the content hub so that you can go back and revisit and get Sean up to speed if he's forgotten things or you've forgotten things.
Mhm.
But that'll always be that sort of accountability without me if you need that extra step or that extra support as time goes on and we're human, we forget things and all that good stuff.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel, as you went through the program, that it was pretty easy to follow? Was it overwhelming? Did you find it complicated? What were your kind of thoughts around the layout of the program, or how you were learning throughout the program?
I thought it was great. Uh, it was easy to do. So Sean and I learn differently. He likes the digital things and I like the printed out things. So that um, worked for both of us. Um, all of the recordings are easy to understand. I like that they're broken up in units so that we can do it over 2 nights if we need to. Where I started to falter was, I believe, module 6. It's a doozy. I think it's the listening one. I really needed a good 2 weeks to let that soak in. So I did that. And then I started getting a lot of work coming in. So I fell up. So that was my problem.
Yeah.
But I would say that like some modules are definitely more heavy than others. And I guess that was just my personal learning style, where I needed to really think about that one instead of putting it aside and trying to get some work done and not paying attention to it. I really needed those extra weeks, I guess.
Yeah, that happens, and that's why some modules are heavier than others, because some modules you can kind of go through and you don't have to do too much thinking. Other modules you might not have to work that much in if your child's already sleeping or staying in bed, so that it gives you a little bit of wiggle room, whether it's heavy or not heavy, or you don't even have to really focus too much. But if you feel you still have questions or you're stuck as you go back through that, then there's always ways for you to come in and get your questions answered. If you find that when you go back through, you're like, oh gosh, I'm not quite figuring this out, I need a little support. So don't worry about that. But definitely schedule some time into your calendar, almost to go back through the program like you're fresh. Like you're brand new, and you and Sean can kind of commit to a night a week where you just listen, and you might not go through it as intently as you did before, or maybe you will, but you're going to learn something new when you re-listen. Every single time, new things will come to mind because you're at a different thinking place. So
Right.
when you first listened to it, it was all brand new. Now, when you listen to it, you're like, no, I get that. I get that. Oh, that's why I do that. And so things are going to make different sense to you.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I kind of view it during the days when the kids are at school and I'm able to work. I like to listen to information and podcasts. And this is kind of like the same to me. Like, I'm just going to love re-listening to all of that and really doing a deep think. So
Good.
that's
Good.
good.
Was there anything, and you won't hurt my feelings, anything about the automated part of the program or the support of the program or anything at all that you felt didn't work well for you, or that you would like to see, or would have liked to have seen been done differently?
Um, I don't think so. Nothing with the hub, I don't think. Um, and I always felt like I could ask questions if something didn't make sense. You always said you don't have to wait for the calls. I guess the only thing would be some of the calls, if there's a lot of people, it felt a little bit rushed.
Okay.
Not with your information, but just trying to get everybody's, I guess.
Okay. Okay. No, that's good information. Yeah. And I never want anybody to feel rushed. And I am happy to stay on longer, which was why I bumped the call time, so that
Oh,
I wasn't late to pick my kids up for school, but I could stay on for a full 2 hours if I needed to.
okay.
But definitely, yeah, that's good information, because I never want somebody to feel like I'm rushing through their answer at all. So
Yeah. Well, I didn't feel like you were rushing, but I felt like, oh, I better just like stick to the point, and so that everybody else will
oh,
turn or
you
something like that.
okay, you felt like you needed to rush. Yeah, you don't need to rush. I'll make sure that I'm making sure that of everybody else's time, and I'll make sure that you get what you need. Oftentimes we feel like we're asking questions that nobody else needs to know, but 90% of the time everybody needs to know it. And so it's relevant to everybody. So in a group setting, sometimes that can happen where we feel like we're taking up somebody else's time, but you're not. It's everybody's time and everybody's learning. So don't worry about that, but that's good to know. Yeah.
It is true, because I brought up that teeth brushing thing and I felt silly, and then that turned out to be a whole other issue for someone else.
And somebody else has brought it up since then, and they
Oh,
go
wow.
back and listen to it in the hub, and they see it in the group, and they're like, oh, I needed that, thank you for sharing. And I'm like, okay. So it seems silly, but that's why no question is silly, because I get questions all the time on what's a good schedule for snacks and
Right.
and eating. What's a good bedtime? What's a good way to get my kids to sit down and do homework? There's no silly question.
Right.
It's all figuring out how to make it work with the right tools. So don't feel silly about anything like that.
Okay.
So based on where you're at today with your kids, where do you feel your confidence lies in your relationship with your kids and the way that you're sort of handling or approaching each day?
Um, I so I'm confident that I can stop the power struggles before they get out of hand. So that makes me feel better every day. I know things are going to go a bit more smoothly. Um, I I'm confident that it's a tough one to answer, but um, I know they feel better about us, so that makes me feel so much better. Nolan just yesterday said no, nobody yells or fights anymore or whatever, but he meant that about the parents. They fight.
Yeah.
um, so I mean, when things like that happen, I just get more and more confidence. I I might not know how to handle weird things as they spring up on the moment, but I can handle the way the day flows at home, at least.
That's
So
great.
that's
That's
better.
good. Yeah, I remember your discovery call and how defeated you were. And you were like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to do. I have no idea what to do. It's just yelling, it's this, it's that. And I don't feel like that today when I talk to you, which is great. But I felt like you made a lot of change quite early on in the program, which is always the case, but people worry they're not going to. So
Mhm.
what do you feel, how do you feel the change came for you? Do you feel like you started to see results right away? Do you feel like everything sort of built on each other and it just got easier, it just got better? How do you feel compared to where you were in that initial discovery call? Um, how do you feel how long it took for you to kind of start feeling better?
It didn't take long at all. I mean, with the first module and reflecting on your own parenting styles, that right away switched our mindset. And even though we didn't have the tools for like specific scenarios later on or golden time or anything like that, we still were aware. Like Sean and I would kind of like when a problem came up, we would stop. So it stopped us during the first week.
Mhm.
And even though we didn't know what to do right away, everybody was like, huh? And then,
Who are
uh,
you?
yeah, so that helped like right away the first week. Like we were just, okay, like our everything switched. It was like we're starting brand new. We have a different mindset and we had results right away. Um, and also in the second week,
How to stop yelling.
yeah, even Sean had a couple epiphanies.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And overall, your quality of life between you and your partner and days and how you feel, do you feel like the program helped you come to a more peaceful, better place in terms of just daily quality of life?
Yeah, absolutely. And I say this to Sean a lot. A lot of what we've learned in the program can be applied to adults.
Mhm.
It's amazing. It's how to treat,
People.
other people or learning to walk away or maybe don't take their projections personally or anything like that. It's helped us in our quality overall for sure
That's
with each
great.
other and friends and everything.
That's so great. That's so great. I feel like that too. I always tease that I can use all the tools on my husband. I just don't tell him. But they do. They're all just general mutual respect
Yeah,
relationship skills. And it takes practice.
it does.
And we don't come into marriage or any relationship really knowing these things. And we weren't, I mean, I wasn't taught these things as a child. I
Yeah.
mean, so it takes time, and we have our habits that have been ingrained in us for so long. And so your goals in the beginning were to, I know, get to a place where it wasn't the daily grind and you weren't constantly yelling and it wasn't power struggle after power struggle. Do you feel like through the program you have met your goals? I know it's a constant. It's always parenting isn't a I met my goals and I'm done. It's a I'm working on them ongoing, but do you feel like you met your goals? And if so, and if not, where do you feel like you still feel like you need to work the most?
I've almost met my goals. I'm still having a problem with the kids fighting and
Okay.
dealing with that. Um, so that was a problem at the beginning, and it's still a little bit of a problem. So I handle it differently, but they keep recurring. It
Okay.
happens at least every day, uh,
Okay.
several
So
times.
that's your red flag that there must be a better way.
Yeah. So we can stop it from escalating, but it's still, I'm not the most confident in how to deal with it. So that was something that I definitely kept rewatching. It would come up a lot in the group calls, and I would keep rewatching those. So I apply those instances, but I still have a few questions about that. And that's the question, that's the big one for me. And I held it until the end because I wanted to apply all the stuff in the modules towards it. And when I got to the tantrum and meltdown one, I sometimes I think they're tantruming, but
Mm-hmm.
it's caused by each other, not us.
Mm-hmm. Can
It's
happen.
so then I had like a giant question about that. So I think I need to add another month because I have a lot to talk about with that.
Yeah, it's ongoing, and that's the beauty of being a program graduate, that you can literally come in for 1 month and then leave, and you can cancel it at any time. And then in 6 months from now, or 3 months from now, or a year from now, you're like, okay, we're having an issue. You can come in for a month, and you
Yeah.
can get 4 to 5 coaching calls and daily support, and then you can leave again. And
Mhm.
so people who are not graduates of the program don't have that option. They have to pay for single sessions,
Right.
which is not as reasonably priced, and you don't get that kind of daily support. So that's one of the perks of being a graduate. So we can definitely do that. But what is great about sort of your thought process on waiting on the sibling rivalry, that sun is so awful. I'm so sorry.
Okay,
It keeps moving. It keeps moving on me. I'm scooching to the end of my desk. But what's great about you waiting to think that way, it shows me that you knew that you needed to get some other thoughts and tools and perspective under your belt in order to solve that. But it also showed me that you are not reacting to it the same. So you
Mhm.
are not maybe causing as much sibling rivalry as you were before. But sibling rivalry is a tricky one. And there are going to be things that we're doing that cause it without realizing it. And ways that we want to set it up so that they know that it's fully their problem and that it's not your problem.
Yeah.
Ways that we can get them to fight in other spaces so that we don't have to listen to it if you're not involved. Ways that they can come up with their own conflict resolution skills instead of you having to be sort of the referee or the judge.
Mhm.
So definitely we can dive into that for sure. But the idea that it's happening daily and
Mhm.
it's ongoing and it's reoccurring, then that is going to help us pinpoint where that is. And you could be thinking about this in the meantime. Where is that occurring?
Mhm.
Is it around certain areas? Is it certain times of the day? Or is it just kind of constantly all day long? And if it's a constant all day long, we're going to approach it differently than if it's around a situation.
Okay.
So be taking some notes and things like that so that you can make sort of the most of that,
Okay.
and really be thinking about, is it an item they're fighting over? Is it somebody antagonizing somebody? Is it during certain activities, getting ready for bed, getting ready in the morning? Is it when you know they're tired?
Mhm.
Um, is it oversharing? Is it what is it over most often? And then those little notes are going to help us as we sort of set up, because as we know, the setup is the most important part. But as we set up where we're going to go, on our solutions for that.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay. Do you feel like you would refer or recommend the program to friends or other family members or parents who are struggling?
Yep, for sure. Sean already has actually. He has a conference group with his work where they share just some wins or some good news or whatever. And he shared that he was doing a parenting program, and they're all like, "Oh, what's the name?" and stuff. So we've already done it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Good, good, good. Good, good, good. Well, I've been completely impressed by you showing up. You came to almost all the calls, which is really where people do make the most change. You don't have to show up, but when you do show up, it just means that you're trying to soak in as much as you can, and why not when you have that opportunity. Um,
Mhm.
I saw a difference right away in the way that you asked your questions and what questions you were asking.
Oh,
Different questions in our discovery call. That's always very apparent to me. I can tell right away by the questions how people are thinking. So I could tell right away that you were already shifting early on, which is why I like to ask that question, because I want to see that you feel like you're shifting right away. Even though I can see it, I want to make sure you feel that way. And I want to make sure that you feel good about where you ended up, because I know it is an investment. I know it's an investment with time, it's an investment mentally, physically, and financially. And I always want to make sure that people feel like they were supported and that you felt good about your investment. And that's why I love to have these calls, because I want to make sure that if you didn't, that I was always there to make improvements.
okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
no, I felt good about all of it. Yeah.